Welcome to Marci Talks Money and Life with your host, Money Marci.
Hello, I am Money Marci. Welcome. I'm thrilled to welcome today's guest, Ryan Canfield. Ryan is the founder and president of Victus Wealth Management, a financial advisory firm dedicated to helping millennial families balance enjoying life today while building long-term wealth. As a husband, father, business owner, and coach, Ryan understands firsthand the pressures modern families face as rising costs, packed schedules, lifestyle creep, and the constant pull between living in the moment and planning for the future. Through his firm, YouTube channel, and Millennial Money newsletter, Ryan teaches practical, values-based strategies that help families reduce financial stress, simplify decisions, and make their money feel purposeful again. Ryan has built Victus Wealth Management around a modern, relationship-driven model, acting as a family's financial partner and strategic guide, not just as an investment manager. His mission is simple: help millennial parents create freedom, flexibility, and a life they're proud to look back on. Welcome, Ryan.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here.
I'm thrilled to have you. What brought you into a career in financial work?
It goes all the way back to about seventh grade. We had a teacher who found this software where you would get basically a virtual amount of $1 million and you had to invest it. And there was no guidelines. It was just basically, here's $1 million, find stocks, invest it. It doesn't matter if the stocks go up or down. You just had to write a report at the end of the year saying, here's why I chose these stocks originally. And if I could go back in time, would you buy them again? So I bought a couple stocks, and the two stocks that I bought did really, really well. And I was like, oh, hey, this is pretty easy. Like, if a seventh grader can do it, anybody can do this. So that was the time where I knew I wanted to do something with investing in the stock market. And the plan was to always go to work on Wall Street. For as long as I can remember, I was going to go work on Wall Street. And then something shifted in 2007 and 2008 when we had the recession. I have a brother that has a disability. And my parents had been working with this same financial advisor for as long as I can remember. And the advisor never actually took the time to learn about my parents, like their family. All the advisor cared about was how much money my parents were going to invest. And they claimed they cared about their retirement goals, but in hindsight, they didn't. So two things happened that year. One, the recession. And my parents were pretty conservative investors and they lost about 80% of their portfolio. Second, the advisor positioned some assets in an account for my brother without taking into consideration that our brother has a disability and was eligible for government benefits. Even though we weren't taking government benefits, he was still eligible for them. So if God forbid, if something happened to my parents, we could turn on the switch and my brother could receive some government benefits to be able to help him to continue to live. The account was above the amount that was allowed by the government. My brother lost his eligibility for the benefits. My parents took a massive hit in their investment portfolios. And that's where I realized that this is an industry that is filled with people that really just don't care. So I decided to shift from Wall Street because I said, if my parents who, are very well educated, they're smart, if they didn't know any better and they put all their trust in this professional, and this professional didn't take the time to actually learn the real in and outs of my parents' situation, I want to go into that career and try to take people like that out of this industry.
Well, and to be honest, special needs are a very niche area, and it may not be that he didn't care as much as he just didn't know, and they should have gone to potentially someone who had the specialized knowledge, but he should have asked the questions and he should have referred them to someone that did, or at least said, hey, this isn't my area.
Yeah, it was one of those that looking back as I've been in this career longer and longer, I realized that like the advisor didn't ask the right questions. The advisor didn't know that my brother had a disability. Not even sure if that advisor even knew I existed. The advisor really only cared about building an investment portfolio. and meeting with my parents once a year saying, hey, your portfolio went up, your portfolio went down. Here's changes we're going to make. I'm going to collect a commission because I'm going to rebalance the portfolio, change out all the funds, collect a commission on it. Talk to you next year. Didn't take my parents' risk tolerance into consideration. We found paperwork that showed that my parents signed off saying that they were conservative investors, and their portfolio was nowhere near a conservative portfolio.
I like that you're talking portfolio now because obviously in seventh grade it was only 2 stocks. And I'm hoping you've learned a little bit since then that you really lucked out.
Yeah. It's funny because like they were taking all of our computers out of our computer lab at the time and replacing them with these very colorful, what I thought was, I call them computers because that's what they were. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, what? Like, why? If they're doing this here to our school, they're probably doing this to all these other schools. And so I asked the teacher, I'm like, hey, like, what's going on here? He's like, oh, they're replacing, our old PCs with Macs. iMacs, I think are technically what they were called. And I was like, who makes those? And he said, Apple. So I type in Apple and I'm like, oh, this is a publicly traded stock. Well, if they're doing it here, I'm gonna buy it. So I spent 500 of the $1 million on that, and that worked out.
Yeah, I was on the investment committee years ago, and we used to talk about the portfolio and rebalancing the portfolio. And if we could just figure out that one stock that was going to do well,
Yeah.
we didn't need to worry about a balanced portfolio, and we'd have so much more returns.
Yeah. And it's funny because like, so somehow I convinced my parents to give me some money in seventh grade. We opened a TD Ameritrade account and we put money into it. And I remember my parents saying, if you lose all this money, it's not a significant amount, but if you lose it, you got to pay us back, when you start working. And I'm like, okay, that's fair. They wanted to give me an opportunity to learn. And I remember I took all of that money and bought Apple. And to this day, they're still holding Apple stock, that same Apple stock. So it's pretty cool to see the return on that.
Yeah, well, when you buy a blue chip, you can buy it and hold it.
Yeah, and it was luck. I mean, it really was. Like, what, seventh grader, what are you, 12, 13 years old at that time? I look at, my son's 13 and he's in seventh grade, and I look at him and I'm like, if he ever came to me and said, Dad, give me some money because I want to buy stocks, I would probably just laugh and be like, buddy, there's no way. No way I'm trusting you with that.
Well, but in some regards, buying stock when you're young enough that you looked at something that was in your world and that you understood. You understood what you saw, you looked it up. So many times people are buying things that they don't understand. One of the rules of thumb I've heard is if you can't draw a picture and explain it with a crayon, then you probably shouldn't invest in it.
I like that.
And I know that's not always true, and I am sure there are things in my portfolio that I don't fully understand. I mean, but you have to have some idea. I know when I'm investing in technology, vaguely what I'm investing in.
Yeah. Yep.
But let's talk about aligning your values and your goals with money, because that seems to kind of touch on where your story came from. How do you work with your clients about aligning their values and their goals?
What it all comes down to is really understanding what their goals and values are. We can't build portfolios or we can't build out a financial plan unless we truly understand where they want to go. You always hear, oh, if money's not around, or forget about money, what exactly would you be doing? I love having that conversation because I feel like that's where I'm getting the truth. And people are very open to, oh my gosh, like if I didn't have to worry about money, I would sell this house and I would travel the world, live in an RV. And I'm like, okay, so they love to travel, So once we have that conversation, I'm a big advocate for value-based budgeting. So we'll sit there and we'll go through, depends on how detailed a client wants to get or in like their situation, but we'll go through their cash flow with a red, yellow, and green highlighter, and we'll highlight, hey, what are you spending money on that aligns with your values? And if something highly aligns with their values and their goals, we'll highlight it green. If it's not getting them closer to their values or their goals, we'll highlight it red. And if it's meh in between, we'll highlight it yellow. And it really opens up my clients' eyes where they're like, wow, there's a lot of red on this paper. And now some of the red we can't get rid of. But there's a lot of the times we can eliminate some of the red and we can start to align their spending with what is most important to them. If somebody wants to travel, but they're in a job where they're working 50, 60, 70 hours a week, if we can realign their spending, maybe that opens up the opportunity for them to take a role where they can only work 40 hours a week, or maybe they can shift to working from home to where that allows them to be able to travel and work from anywhere. So, I mean, I've seen it all.
Yeah, that is true. And for those of you who aren't really clear what value-based budgeting is, it's when you create a budget and you pay attention to what you want to do as opposed to just what you have to do or what you've been doing, and you make sure your values are within that framework of the budget.
I'll never forget. I have a client that when they first started working with me, they were so nervous for that first meeting because they thought I was going to tell them, you are spending $200 a month on coffee. Like, what are you doing? You've got to cut that out, blah, blah, blah. But then throughout that conversation with them, I found out they both worked from home. They would drop kids off wherever they needed to go, daycare, get them on a school bus, whatever it was. And then sometimes the husband would go to a coffee shop and just sit there for like an hour or two. Sometimes the wife would do it. Sometimes they did it together. And that was their outlet. So if they went individually, sometimes the husband would run into people. Like, he knew what coffee shop he liked to go to. He was a regular. So he was able to interact with other people that he sees there all the time, which ultimately ended up helping his career and business. Same thing for the wife. But then when they went together, it was time for them to be at peace and not have distractions and be able to connect and stuff. And like, that was important to them. Other advisors, I feel like, would have seen that they were spending $200 a month on coffee and be like, you got to cut that back because you're not maxing out your Roth IRA. Where I sat there and saw that it was important for them. And I'm like, hey, like, don't cut that out. How about we cut the 18 streaming services that you have that you say you have no time to watch? That's where that value-based spending comes into play.
And that's important. It's really easy to say, well, you can't go out for coffee or get rid of your avocado toast, but you don't know what their priorities are and what their needs are. And networking takes all kinds of different forms. That coffee shop sounds like that was a huge networking opportunity for them.
It was.
Let's pause for a quick break.
I had a client who, his goal, and he mentioned this, I don't know how many times during the first meeting, was he wanted to fully fund his daughter's college. He didn't care about his retirement. He didn't care about anything else. It was, I've got to max out, like, I've got to pay for her college. And again, it had to do a lot with like his upbringing and the student loan debt that he had. But he's like, I don't have any extra money. I can't do it. So we went through and found out that he was a big cigarette smoker. And after I ran the numbers, I basically showed him, I said, listen, like, if you stopped smoking and you took that money and put college savings plan, you're fully funding her 529. Her college is fully funded. So we broke from that meeting, and it was about 6 months later we met again. And he was 6 months clean of smoking. He quit right on the spot. He was setting the money aside in a savings account. We opened up a 529 plan right at that meeting. And he has not smoked another cigarette since then. And he's on track to like overfund college for her. I get asked a lot of times like, hey, what's the coolest client story? Oh, I helped a client stop smoking before. And it's cool stuff like that. That's why I love doing what I do.
That's awesome. So different ages, generations, I guess. Millennials, Gen Z, they all have different relationships with money because of the things we were brought up with, because of the world as it changes around us. What can you talk about how you deal with different generations and their finances?
Yeah, you hit the nail right on the head. A lot of the way millennials and Gen Z think about money has to do with their upbringing. I think about my earliest money memory, and that's a question that I always ask my clients. What's the earliest memory you have with money? Because that tells me a lot. I think about my personal situation, and I remember Friday nights, my mom with a white envelope, like multiple white envelopes, and she's budgeting. She's taking physical cash and putting it into these envelopes, and then taking these envelopes, writing down what the balance is on the back side of it, and sticking it into her safe. And I always think about Christmas because she did it for Christmas. She would save X amount of money every single week. So then Thanksgiving would come around. She would pull the Christmas envelope out, take that wad of money that was in it, and that's where our Christmas gifts would come from. I think my relationship with money has like that almost was like the foundation of how I think about money. I have some clients who going back to having student loan debt, I have clients that had to pay for themselves. Or I have this one couple just popped in my head when I'm saying this. Husband had to pay for all of his college. He is 38 years old, still has student loan debt. The wife had her college fully funded. She graduated with no student loan debt. So when we sit down and we're having the conversation, and they have 2 kids now, the husband doesn't care about saving for the kids' college. The wife wants to. The husband's like, I'd rather save for retirement because we can't take loans out for that. The wife would rather save for college and not contribute to a 401k or a Roth or a traditional IRA. So it's talking through every situation with them and finding that balance. It's really important. But again, their mentality around money is because of their upbringing.
Right. And they both have big points there. College costs versus the average wages, income. It's gone way crazy. The ratio of college expenses to income when I went to college versus when you went to college versus now. There's just no comparison to them. But on the flip side, if you don't save for your retirement, not only can't you take a loan for it, but there's no guarantee your kids are going to pay for it because you don't know what their financial. So you've got to find a way to do all of that, which I guess brings me to how do you get people to talk about money with their spouses? How do you get them to hear each other when they're talking about these values, which can go back generations, because we're all impacted by those who came before us. You're impacted by the relationship your parents had with money, which was impacted by the relationship their parents had.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those that in the very beginning, typically I'll do a 15-20 minute intro call with clients before they become a client. And I tell them we're going through very personal conversations, very intimate conversations, probably conversations that you have never had or you've started to have, and you got a little uncomfortable and you were like, hey, I don't want to do this, because arguments would start to happen and stuff. If they aren't comfortable doing that, or they give me a little bit of pushback, I try to dig a little bit deeper to find out why. Usually we're able to move past it. I have had situations, actually I had a situation 2 weeks ago where the husband handles the finances, the wife does absolutely nothing when it comes to money. Therefore, the husband only wanted to be on the call. He said the wife didn't want to be on the call. We had 3 meetings, and all 3 meetings the wife never would appear on the call. And he kept making comments, she doesn't handle this stuff. She doesn't need to be involved. She's not a decision maker when it comes to finances. I had expressed at every single meeting how important it was for her to be involved in the conversation. I could not change his mind. I could not give him to give her permission to be able to be involved in the conversation, if that makes sense. And I cut ties with him. If we're talking finances, I don't care if one spouse is the breadwinner, makes all the financial decisions, and the other spouse is a stay-at-home spouse. Like, that is just as important. And God forbid if something happens to the breadwinner and the spouse has no clue about anything with the finances, we got a problem.
Right, or who to talk to. Who do I talk to if my spouse dies and I don't know who are the people that have, the accountant, the broker, the whatever else. I've had no contact with them. Those are hard conversations.
Yeah. And I've had those conversations. I've had them a lot throughout my career. I've been doing this for 13 or 14 years now. Some of these conversations that I've had where we're talking and one spouse is talking over the other spouse, over talking me and all this other stuff. And I've literally had to sit there and be like, hey, it's their turn to talk. I want to hear from them. I can kind of see the spouse as the quiet one, kind of like, oh no, like you really want to talk to me? I'm like, yeah, I want to know what's important to you. It's okay to have 2 different opinions when it comes to money. That is okay. What's not okay is not being able to talk about it. And there's a fantastic book out. Money Together was written by Heather and Doug Boneparth. Fantastic, fantastic book. It's one that I have recommended to all of my married clients. I have multiple copies here. And it's just talking about how do you have that conversation. It talks about going on money dates where you and your spouse go out and go to a restaurant, go sit on a back patio where you can just be one on one with your spouse and it guides you through how to have conversations around money. And that is so important. It's so important that I actually, when I'm working with somebody with their cash flow, we will budget out money for money dates. And it's something that, again, you have to be able to have those conversations. And you're not going to these meetings with your spouse and saying, hey, well, look at this. You spent $300 on Amazon purchases this week. You can't do that. It's more so of, hey, here's kind of where we're at. Are we still wanting to go down the same path that we've talked about at the last money meeting? Do we still want to buy that lake house in 5 years? Do we still want to fully fund college savings? Do we want to increase our retirement savings? And that's where the planning work that I do kind of helps them with those conversations. I have a couple clients where I will send them a money date agenda for them to kind of walk through, just to give them a little bit of guideline because it's brand new to them. But it is so, so important because I can't remember if money is the number one or number two cause of divorce. Like I know it's up there.
It's up there, absolutely. And most of the time it's about communication. It's not even that the couples don't have any money or anything. It's just a matter of getting in line, understanding each other's values, understanding each other's wants and needs and priorities,
Yep.
and hearing each other.
That's the key. It's hearing each other. I've been involved in conversations where I have had couples full blown yelling at each other because they cannot agree on anything. One spouse wants to buy that lake house. They want to downsize the house they live in now, spend half the year at the lake house, half the year back in their hometown. The other spouse is like, I'm not leaving the kids. The kids are local. We're not going anywhere. We're staying here. And the husband's like, I'm not staying here. I'm gone. I'm doing this. And then it starts causing tension and arguments. And I've had clients where we've been going through the financial planning process and they end up getting divorced just because they realize that they are like, I call it money infidelity. Money was hidden. It was exposed during the planning process, which led to other problems. And I'm like, just if people just communicated and listened, that's the key. Just don't communicate, but actually listen to what your spouse is saying when it comes to money. I feel like divorce would be lower. People would just be happier, less stress.
Yeah, I do think that a money meeting before you get married, theoretically with a financial professional, whether it's an accountant or an investment advisor or whatever else, so you can lay cards on the table and kind of understand where you are going in, can make a huge difference because at least you've had that communication before you've made that commitment. Let's pause for a quick break.
Even as simple as, are we merging finances when we get married? It's like they've never had that conversation before. I encourage every married couple to have their finances merged. I feel like when you have your accounts separate, it ends up causing friction of who's paying for what, especially if you have kids in a situation. Like if I went to my wife and said, "Hey, it's your turn to buy one of our three kids their next sporting equipment," that makes me so uncomfortable. You're married, you're a team. I'm okay having a main account that pays for everything and then each spouse having their own separate little account. I love that idea. There's no handcuffs on that account. I can spend whatever money, I can spend whatever's in that account on whatever I want. My wife can spend whatever she wants on over there. Like I'm okay with that. Like that's great. But like the main operating account, in my opinion, needs to be together.
I can't agree or disagree with that because I know different people make things work in whatever way. I think communication is the start of figuring out what is the best way to make it work for you. But yeah, so then you're talking about sporting equipment. So I got to go back to tell me about this coaching you do.
Yeah, so I coach my son's travel baseball team. I've been doing it since, I guess it's 4 years now, 5 years now. I've been coaching travel baseball, which is a whole nother job, I feel like. But I've been coaching baseball since he's been 4, when he's 13 now. So it's awesome. It's amazing how much coaching baseball has helped me with my business as far as how I think about things. I have seen kids not be able to get involved in travel sports because of the expense around it. I have seen how much talent some of these kids have and they're not able to pay for it. So that helps motivate me a little bit because I have this vision of I think every kid should have an opportunity to play sports, whether it's travel or rec. It upsets me that money becomes a factor and prevents very talented kids or kids that just want to play a sport in general. Money prevents them from being able to play. So I have this vision of creating a foundation where if a kid really wants to play basketball, baseball, football, lacrosse, hockey, golf, cheerlead, water polo, whatever sport it is, and if the family doesn't have the income to be able to support it, great, we'll take care of it. I look at my son's baseball team now, and there are so many times where I could easily go to the parents and say, hey, parents, like we need an extra $50 per family because we have to buy X for the team. And I'll just pay for it. I don't want to put that burden on people because I know from what I do and the conversations I have with families, I know how tight money can be and how people worry about money. And even if they have no reason to worry about money, people still worry about money. I don't want sports to be a burden or a stress factor for families.
Yeah, and the problem with sports is so many sports have such different price points. Basketball, track, those are relatively less expensive sports. You get into things like hockey, and they're very expensive. I can't imagine what water polo costs. It's not that the equipment is very expensive, except for the fact you got to get pool time somewhere. And I imagine that stocks up.
Yeah.
I love sports. I played sports growing up. My kids did a little bit of sports growing up. It wasn't either of their wheelhouses, but they both had some experiences with it. It's sad when people can't participate in those things, when the kids can't have the opportunities because it's just the price keeps them out of the opportunity.
Yeah, our travel organization, we have an upfront registration fee because we have a 30,000 square foot indoor facility. And being in Pennsylvania, we have to have an indoor practice space. And we play all year long, so we practice all year long. And I have had kids come to tryouts and they're so excited. They want to be part of the team. And then I have the conversation with the parents of, hey, here's what the costs are. And they're like, nope, we can't pay that. It puts the parents in an awkward situation to have to explain to the kids, hey, you made the team, we can't afford it, so you're not going to go play for them. I'm not a fan of it, and that's where if I could sit there and just say, hey, we have a foundation, we're going to take care of all registration fees. The bats that they use are $400 or $500 a piece, and it's like each kid has 2 or 3 bats. If they're a catcher, all the catcher's gear, the gloves, like swag that they have to wear when they're playing, then each tournament $1,000, and then you have to pay for the hotel fees on top of it. And 2 years ago we went to South Carolina for a baseball tournament, and it was over 4th of July, and we were down there for the whole entire week. And we got down there and realized that the room was relatively small, and I have a family of 5, and we're like, well, we need to go buy a second room. So we were able to get a room that was connected to our room, and we're driving back from South Carolina, and I looked at my wife, do you know for what we just spent down here for the week for this baseball tournament, we could have went to Disney World? And she was like, no. And I said, yeah, because we had to buy 2 rooms for a whole entire week, so I don't want money to be a burden.
I think that's awesome, and that's a fabulous goal that you have there to create that
Yeah.
foundation. I wish
Yep.
you a lot of luck with that.
I appreciate it. Yeah.
Can you think of anything that you'd like to mention that maybe we haven't covered yet, Ryan?
I would say, like, whether it's me or another financial advisor, I think it's worth people sitting down and talking to a professional. Again, I think about those money conversations and how awkward and stressful that they can be, especially with your spouse. I think leaning on a professional to help guide that conversation would not only benefit you, but also benefit your children if you have children. Kids can sense a lot of the stress and anxiety that parents have, which then causes stress and anxiety for the kids. So if money is that number one stress and anxiety point, why not do something to try to eliminate it or reduce it?
Manage
And
it.
that's yeah, and that's what I always tell clients and, just people in general. I'm like, think of me as like your CFO of your family. Like you're still the CEO, you're still the one making the decisions, but my job is to come to you with the options and then you ultimately decide. I know for us personally, we have on our island in our kitchen a stack of financial envelopes, financial things that we get in the mail that sit there and they pile up. And I go and I take them off the island and I bring them into my office and I sit here and I go through them, see what's important, what do we need to do, are there changes that we need to make? And I'm a financial professional. I still get that piling up. But my wife doesn't stress about it. My wife doesn't need to stress about it because she knows that I'm going to handle it. So I always tell people like, let me handle your financial stack of papers that's on your island or dining room table or kitchen counter, wherever that pile is. Let me take that off and take that out of your house. I'll take care of it. Because your life is better spent at the ball fields with your kids, this ice skating rink, riding bikes, jumping on the trampoline, traveling, doing things like that, rather than we have this huge stack, open enrollments coming up. We got to go through that stuff. Taxes are coming up. We got to handle that stuff. Am I contributing enough for retirement? Oh my gosh, Christmas is now here. We've saved nothing for Christmas. Oh, we want to go overseas next summer. Oh no, we can't afford that because we got $30,000 in credit card debt on 8 different credit cards that we don't know which one we're supposed to pay off. But we also got to save for college for our kids while saving for our retirement. And now my parents are getting older. I got to take care of them and they need help with their finances. And now I got to help try to get them into a home while at the same time managing my home. Like all of that stuff is stress that you don't need, So find somebody, whether it's me, whether it's another financial advisor that does actual financial planning, like find somebody to help with that. Build a team and go live your life.
Yeah, that's really important to build a team of financial professionals who can manage the parts that you can't. And that doesn't mean that you're not involved in it. You're not giving Ryan all of your papers and then dashing off into the sunset and he magically makes money appear on trees, but he's your partner who understands the information and can help you to better understand it and implement hopefully better decisions than you might have done otherwise.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know that a lot of people in the public think that you have to have assets to work with a financial advisor. That's not always the case. Yes, that can be true for some of them. But the way I built my practice was I work with clients on a subscription basis. So they can pay monthly. I have clients that have assets. I have clients that don't have assets, but we're building a plan that matches the life that they want. That's what's important.
There's a lot of opportunity, a lot of options. I really appreciate, Ryan, having you as my guest today.
No, thank you. I appreciate you having me on.
To my listeners, I will be sharing a link to Ryan's information in the show notes. Please check his links out. He has a lot of interesting information. Victus Wealth Management. Don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review, and stay tuned. I'll see you next time. This has been Money Marci on Marci Talks Money and Life. You got this.
Hello, my name is Otis Lewis Wilson Jr. I am the host of OLWJ Captivation, the podcast featuring boundless superstars and other individuals who are capable of helping you to achieve maximum success with your mind and your money. The podcast can be found on Amazon, Apple, Pandora, Spotify, and other major podcasting platforms. When you check it out, be sure to hit that subscribe button. It's OLWJ Captivation.